Okay, I want to talk a second about my Froup stove. I did some modifications. I'll show them to you after the video because I should have done it before, but I'll show after the video the modifications that I made. I'm still using the short can. What I did was I put more holes in the top. It's a new can, it's not the old can, but I put more holes in the top and of the inner can is what I'm talking about. The outer can is the exact same can. The only thing I did with the outer can was I took a Dremel and I rounded out the holes. Unfortunately, that probably wasn't the greatest idea because now I made some of the holes slightly larger than the others, but I'm not too concerned about that. They're all relatively close to the same diameter, but it made the stove look a lot better. Not that looks mean anything, they don't. You don't have to do that, but I also smoothed the inside of the can out because where I drilled, it had pushed the metal in, and I store the pot stand in the bottom of the can. You know, I just kind of push it up underneath the bottom, and it goes in and works and fits, and just makes it, you know, easier to stow and carry. But again, the outer can's the exact same outer can I've used throughout this deal. I just did those small modifications to it. The inner can's a brand new can. It's the shorter can still. I put more holes in the top. I'll show you those after the video. I put holes in the bottom. I smoothed those out, did the same thing as I did with the outer can. They're not exactly uniform. I probably could have done a much better job, but they do look better than the other can did, at least, so it was an improvement. And I raised the hole slightly, so now right now this stove is holding 1 ounce. It's all it'll hold. It won't hold any more. It goes right up to the bottom of the inner can holes. 1 ounce of denatured alcohol heat. And without further ado, this is an alcohol boil test. I'm going to start the timer. I'm actually a little behind, so that the water, it's 2 cups of water, tap water, at 60. It's actually at 61 degrees right now, but I'm going to light this up. I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about one more modification that I made. Whoops, it did leak a little bit of fuel out the bottom. You can see it burning, but that'll be all right. It's already burning away. There it goes. It's already blooming for this stove. And so here, without further ado, here we go. I'm going to set this on and turn my temp gauge back on. And I've already started the timer. With any luck, we will actually get a boil this time. The last time I tried this was with the old stove. The can was longer, which put the alcohol further away from the stove, and the pot stand was taller. It was 3 high instead of 2 high. So I am fully expecting a boil off of this time. And obviously, though, one of the other differences is on the inside there's no wind, which is going to affect it some. But again, you know, you'll have to try this on your own if you're going to make one of these stoves and use it the way you would use it in the field. You know, try it out, take it on a day hike with you, and actually cook a meal with it, just like you would if you were overnight hiking, only you're just not overnight. So so far it's got a good you know, really good flame pattern, although that may not be good. It may burn the alcohol faster, but it's covering the entire bottom of the pot. As a matter of fact, so much so that it's actually overlapping the side a little bit, which isn't necessarily good. But we're at 125 degrees and 124. So one of the other modifications, and I'll try to show this after the video, is I'm not gonna try to. I built a little screen. How I did that was I took one, I cut it almost identical to the pot stand, only just slightly smaller in diameter, and I inserted it into the inner can all the way to the bottom. What that did was it put some of the metal of the you know, the material of the pot stand, the same material, the hardware cloth, over the holes, but that shouldn't affect it any. And then I made it so it fit perfectly around the outside of the can. And then what I did was I cut a screen out so that it would sit on top of that. So that, and I'll try to show this in the video afterwards, but what that'll do is when I use wood with this stove, it will make a gap between the bottom of the can, the inner can, and where the wood's actually burning. And I'm hoping that that'll allow it to get a little bit more oxygen and make the stove a little hotter and make it burn more efficiently. I don't know whether it's going to or not. I just decided I'd give that a try and see if that works out. The disadvantage of doing that is that I haven't figured out a really good way to secure it so that the little round grate isn't really attached to the stove. Everything else stays, you know, right where it's supposed to. It all fits perfectly, but that little disc will fall out, you know, in transport of the stove. And you just have to, you know, put it back in every time you want to use the stove. That's not a huge deal, in my opinion. You know, as long as the stove's cool, it's no big deal. There we go, 212 and 330. That is excellent. As a matter of fact, I think that's the fastest burn time of any stove I've used yet. I'm gonna let this go to burnout and see what happens. It looks like it just went into burnout. So burnout was like 349, 350. You don't know if you can see that. There you go. It was like 349, 350. Turn this off. And which was quick, and that was an ounce of alcohol, which it took a little more alcohol to get the boil, but it burned. That went really fast. As always with this test, I'll try that a few more times, make sure that that's the same case. Then I'll probably take it outside and try it outside. I just periodically, I play with these things all the time, but I just periodically video them so that you guys can see kind of how I'm testing these and what I do. And just in case you want to build one yourself. Again, this Froup stove is proved to be a lot of fun, just tinkering with it. I'm not a real big hands-on person. I've said this a million times. You know, I'm not real good at building things with my own hands, but I have had a lot of fun just tinkering with this. So I definitely recommend it to anybody else. Again, this is my Froup stove. Let me see if I can move this off. And then I'll do a quick video right after this. I'll just attach it to. It'll be seamless for you, but I'll show you what the inside of the can looks like now. So here we go. Okay, here we are. It's going to be a little shakier because I'm actually holding the camera by hand, but as you can see, I just smoothed out the holes. They're not 100% uniform, but they're as close as I could possibly get them without, like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like measure each hole, but when I was cutting them, again, I'm not the greatest at making things myself, but as you can tell, the holes, I don't know if you could tell in the previous test, but they're a lot better than the way it started out. I smoothed the inside of the can, which I'm not going to be able to show you probably from here, but as you look in, you can see the discoloration from the inner can. That was the first burn for this inner can. So what you're seeing was caused by the alcohol burning all this stuff off. And as you can see you can see the little grate that I made down at the bottom. Again, that grate is too high, just like the top. It's just down in the bottom of the can. I took my time. It took a little while to build it, but I probably could have thrown it together, but I did actually take my time trying to make it look as professional as I possibly could. But I built that too high and put that down in the bottom, and then on top of that I just sat that little grate, and you can see it down in there. Again, I can already tell the only issue I see with that is it will fall out. It could get bent. There could be other issues, but those are the modifications I made to this stove. Next test will be, I'm going to put some wood. I'm going to have to soak some alcohol, so that's going to take a little while. I'm going to let this whole setup cool down, and I'm gonna take some wood and I'll burn wood in it. I'll probably do that outside just because it makes a bigger mess and it smokes. Again, I've said this in the last couple of videos, but if you're gonna do this inside, make sure you're using extreme caution and safety. Make sure you have a fire extinguisher just in case. To put out alcohol, the best way to put it out that I found is to snuff it out. So you can keep a pot nearby that doesn't have water in it. Just snuff out the stove if you have to. Also make sure you're doing this on non-flammable materials. The good thing about alcohol is it's pretty much containable. It doesn't burn wildly. It's not unlike wood that can have a chance to shift or fall. Alcohol doesn't do that. But you also want to make sure you're well ventilated while you're doing this. So don't try to do that without some kind of ventilation. Have a window open, use your stove fan, whatever you need to do. Okay, I just wanted to show real quick. This is the pot stand that I made, too high. It's not connected at the end. At first I had it connected, but I realized like it actually works better just to cut it off and not have it connected. That way when I put it in the bottom of this, it can collapse down slightly and fit in better. I just wanted to show like some of the work I did on the can. I used a Dremel, smoothed all the edges out underneath the can and on the bottom on all the holes. I chose to do 2 rows of large holes, and then this is the original. I haven't modified this. This is the exact same one that I've been using. All I did, you leave the lip on this one the way it is. So you just, like this one came with a pull top. I pulled the top off, separated the bottom, and then cut the holes out with a drill. And then I used a Dremel to smooth it all out and sand it all up. And then what I did was I on the inner can, I pulled the top out. I used the hole punch and I pressed real hard on the ring, went around the ring multiple times, and so now there's no sharp edge on the inner can or ring or anything to cut you or anything like that. But the reason you leave this lip on is so that when you drop the can in, it fits and it has something to sit on. So don't smooth the outer can's ring. But on the inner one, I didn't want to get cut with anything when I'm putting wood in there, so I smoothed it all out with I just used the hole punch. Then I did a hole punch on this modification. I put multiple rows of holes on the top, which I did not have on the other one. And I put relatively larger holes on the bottom, of which I left some room at the bottom to hold alcohol in case I needed to go to alcohol as a backup. And as you can see in that test, it worked really well for the stove. I mean, that was pretty quick, but it did take more alcohol. But as a backup, I think that's a viable option for this. And then this last modification I did was build this grate. And I know that's hard to see, but it's actually up off the bottom. Again, it was too high. It's too high, so it's that far. Whoops. It's that far off the bottom. It did add some weight. I think this whole thing, I'm going to go reweigh it real quick, but it was 3 ounces. So it went from the original stove with the longer can, inner can, being 2.9 ounces to the shorter can, which went to like 2.7 ounces, I think. And then I put this grate back in it, which took me to 3 ounces. So it's still a 3 ounce setup, which I know for most hikers that might be heavy. The offset is that you don't have to carry fuel. So most people with their fuel, with an alcohol stove that even weighs 0.3 ounces, this may weigh less in the long run. It would definitely weigh less if you were on a long journey where you were, say you were out a week or 2 weeks, because it would definitely save you weight carrying carrying fuel. The downside of this is it's messy. Let me show you real quick, but it definitely suits up your pots, and this is mild, believe me. When you burn wood in it, it's a lot messier, and so you have to deal with the soot and stuff like that. Also, you have to have wood to put in it, and wood obviously is subject to rain and wet. You could always take a knife and cut the outer part of the wood, because usually on a stick of wood, the outer part's what absorbs the water, it gets wet, and the inner part is usually dry, so you could actually cut some like kindling and still use it. So I mean, it's not the end of the world. But as I just tested with this, you could also carry a small bottle of alcohol as a backup. So it does make it somewhat of a viable option. I don't know that I'll be carrying this on a trip anytime soon. This was more just an experiment, but I like that this is definitely now a viable option, that if I had to, you know, to go on a longer trip where wood was available, plentifully available, I could do this with a small amount of wood. I could make a meal, a hot meal. So as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, you know, click the like button. If you don't like, click the dislike button. If you got any questions, or if you see me doing something that I could do better or wrong, you know, as always, just put a comment on it. Let me know. I'd appreciate it. I appreciate you watching my video. And again, this is Cool Breeze. See you next time.